Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Roker Report podcast in association with the Sunlun Community Soup Kitchen. It's Gav back again this week after what has been, well, an incredibly eventful few days, let's just put it at that. As we record this, it's the day after the Fulham game, so with a busy few days potentially ahead in the transfer market, we thought we'd bring an old friend along for a chinwag. Delighted to be joined by Tom White, who is of course a massive Lads fan. Most of you'll know he hosts Good Morning Transfers and Transfer Talk on Sky Sports News. Morning, mate. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm brilliant. Tip top. I mean, we drew 1-1 yesterday. And if I'd just said that to any random football fan, oh yeah, we drew 1-1 with Fulham yesterday, they might be thinking, oh, why are you so relentlessly positive? But it was brilliant, wasn't it? Were you there?
No, I wasn't there. I had 2 tickets, but a bit of a childcare issue, which ruined that. But it was actually quite interesting for me because I don't tend to get to listen to games on radio very often, Sunderland games, because I'm either there or able to watch it at work or what have you. And actually, let's be honest, we're on TV a lot this season as well,
Yeah.
which is quite nice in a way.
Media
I know
darlings,
in
I
some ways
think. Is
Yeah, exactly. And it's so being able to listen to. I listened to some of it on with Nick Barnes and Gary Bennett, and I listened to some of it on 5 Live with Don Hutchison as the pundit. Had Soccer Saturday on as well with Tim Sherwood watching the game. And it was quite a nice experience for me to listen to what all of them were saying. Now, fair enough, Nick and Gary Bennett watches every week, but listening to Don Hutchison and Tim Sherwood talking about us, the amount of praise that we were getting. And remember, like you said, we only drew. We're not into we're in the draw for the next round. We're not into the next round yet. That is incredibly positive, the things that they were saying. So for me, it was actually quite a nice experience, but I would have preferred to have been there.
It's like back in the days, and I used to sit in the kitchen with my dad with a radio on. I'm on about Jesus, make myself feel 20 odd year ago. And it was nice. I've done that before actually, where I've been in the car, and it's a different experience, isn't it? You get more engrossed, I find. You haven't got the distraction of your phone in your hand or talking to your mates about the game. You're just listening to what the commentators are saying. It's pretty cool.
Remember the game in the rain, the 2-1 away at Newcastle, the 2-1. I think Kieran Dyer scored first, and then Quinn and Phillips, pretty certain that one. I remember listening to that exactly like you said with my mum and dad in the kitchen, and like it's actually a memory you'll never forget, even though I wasn't there, which is rare for me in a derby. But it was quite nice yesterday, but mainly listening to what people who don't see us very often are starting to see what we see every week lately.
Yeah, that was the big thing for me. Like we've seen this version of Sunderland for months now, but yesterday did feel like there was a bit of a sea change. I just think recently it just feels as though people are starting to turn up and that Sunderland in a lot of people's minds, and I think maybe the Netflix series and the fact people just know we were in League One for 4 years. Maybe that's clouded their judgment of us as a club. But I don't think a lot of people, until recently, realised just the direction we're taking as a club. And then, I watched the highlights show that they did, Match of the Day last night. Sunderland first game on, and they made a big deal out of Chris Rigg. Obviously, we'll get onto that. But I think people are starting to see now, like, Sunderland are a proper club again with a really, really exciting blueprint for how to push forward in the future.
Well, the commentator on 5 Live actually said towards the end of the game, he said, if this does end up going to a replay, he kind of gave an live on-air message to the producers saying, you've got to make sure this one's televised. Because if the replay is anything like this game at Craven Cottage, it's well worth putting on TV. So that's someone who won't have seen us this season because they'll probably only do Premier League games and the odd FA Cup game, which wouldn't have been us until yesterday. But I think people are seeing, first of all, when they watch us play, they're seeing our style of play, and it's very, very exciting. And they're seeing all these players who they probably didn't even know their names.
Yeah.
And they're seeing them play and think, well, where's that player come from? And then they'll look it up and think, how have they managed to find him? And suddenly, everything about us is getting praised. On the pitch, we're getting praised for the style of play. Our performances and results have been pretty good. And also off the field, it seems like our recruitment's getting praised, which we haven't had since probably, well, it was praised under Peter Reid, but there were a lot of duds there as well.
I can't ever remember a time like this, Tom, if I'm
No,
honest.
I don't. No, I mean, Sam Allardyce had one brilliant transfer window. That's the only transfer window he was actually properly our manager.
Yeah.
And that was one window, and that was on established players.
This is very different, isn't it? This is very, very,
Very
different.
yeah, very much so. And it's at the moment it deserves praise because so far these players are showing a lot of potential, and they're realizing their potential because they're being given a chance to.
Yeah, what do you think's changed then? Because I keep trying to put my finger on this. I think I'm coming more to the realisation that Tony Mowbray has been a massive influence just on the little tweaks we've had to make to go from being a decent side with young players to a one where it's not just about the team on the pitch, it's actually more about the environment that the manager's created to allow players like a 15-year-old Chris Rigg to just come off the bench and not look phased whatsoever. Like, what do you think's changed?
Well, I think he's obviously saying to these players, and the vast majority of the squad are very young, he's saying, right, what are you good at? Go and do it. Go and prove it, all right? And giving them some freedom. He's probably saying, don't worry if you have a bad game. You might even, I'll try to give you a run in the side. That's not always possible because sometimes somebody comes in just because there's a one-match suspension or a niggling injury and they don't get that run of games. But in general, players are coming in and getting a chance to show what they can do. Remember that Diallo had to wait for his chance, and he got his chance, couldn't get him out the side. But you even toyed with different formations to make sure he was playing. And Michu might now get his chance in the side. As soon as he came in, he said that, Dan Neil, I'm picking you, and I'm going to keep picking you. And that's what he did. And look how much he has improved. He was already very good, and now he's improved. But what he said there about the mentality, I do think that what Mowbray does is give them the freedom to do that. And it was interesting, I think it was mentioned on this podcast last week that when Luke O'Nien did some co-commentary on the Middlesbrough game, he said that the forward players are allowed to just go and play. They're not really coached. Now, that's nothing new, all right? If you go back to Allardyce, who everyone knows I'm his biggest fan, what he always said was, I'll get the defence right, okay? The midfielders are part of that defensive unit as well. But the forwards, they can just go and do what they like. They can show some flair. They can play with the freedom. But this is the big difference between then and now. Under Allardyce, regardless of what formation he played, there were 3 forwards, a striker and 2 playing off. Right?
Yeah.
Whether that was in a 5 at the back or as a 4-3-3, which ended up keeping us up, where you had a striker and 2 kind of wingers, right? So you had Defoe up front, and on the wing you had either Barini and Watmore and Khazri. You had two of those 3 were playing, and they were the ones who were told, just go and play. If you notice in Mowbray's formation, his preferred formation is a 4-2-3-1. Now that's a striker and 3 behind the striker. That's 4 attacking players who are allowed to just go and play. And that makes for a far more enjoyable spectacle, I will say, but also it's one more attacker for a defender.
Yeah.
Or defensive midfielder. And if he is putting in a formation like that and saying to the players, just go and play, 4 of them out of 10 outfield players, that is more than most managers would do. And that is having a huge, huge difference.
It's interesting when you hear him talk about players in general, when he mentions how he likes players who play forward. And for me, that was one of the big bugbears of being in League One, was that a lot of the time, while we had better players than some of the other teams, we didn't always have the confidence to play forward and to get at teams. I'm not picking on Max Power, but he was one player who it really used to frustrate me with him because he used to like to go side to side and backwards, and that's almost going backwards is almost like a dirty phrase in this current setup. You don't go backwards, you look up, you look forward, you try to play your attacking players in, your more creative players, and everybody knows their job. And that is why going into this game, when I spoke to Chris on the preview show, we were talking about how we were so confident of just being able to go to Fulham and do exactly what we do every week in the Championship. And it doesn't matter that they're a good Premier League team because we're just so confident in our own ability to play football. And that's what we saw. We saw a team who are so confident right now and are playing some of the best stuff. I mean, I might have got a little bit carried away, but do I stand by it? I think this probably is the best football I've seen Sunderland play, to be honest, in terms of just watching a game of football and watching 11 players who just do everything right. Like there's no, I'm not watching Sunderland now and thinking this is boring or We don't look very confident. We're going and we're trying to play football against every team that we play. And it's not just passing for the sake of it. It's actually trying to carve teams open and create chances and score goals. Where does it rank in your list of your favourite Sunderland teams, the best sort of style of football and stuff?
Well, we'll have to do it over a more sustained period of time before I say it's the best, but I know exactly what you mean. And when you see us in quite a few games lately, ever since really we came back during the World Cup, didn't we, with that Millwall game? We're playing some beautiful football. I think part of that is that those kind of front four, let's call them that, is that the rest of the players know that if they get the ball to them, something could happen.
Yeah.
Give it to Clark, Diallo, Roberts and Stewart until now, really. They know that, and before that, Sims as well, if they get the ball up there, that's where we want the ball. We don't actually want the ball in the middle of the pitch. We want it up there because they can do so much damage. So it comes from that. The way we're playing is, as a Sunderland fan, mind-blowing, because I don't really expect to see us play like this. And if you think of under Peter Reid when it was 4-4-2 with wingers who would just be getting the ball to Quinn and Phillips, and we always had a more attacking central midfielder in there as well, alongside probably Kevin Ball. It was really good football, good to watch. It was quick, it was direct, and we loved it. Now I can relate to that as a Sunderland fan, but these little intricate passes and the movement of Diallo and Roberts and that understanding they have, I've never seen that before.
No.
For us anyway. And I've actually not seen it for that many teams.
No.
That many teams at all. If we were playing in the Champions League now, everyone would be praising us for the way we play. And normally that wouldn't work in the Championship. It wouldn't even work in the Premier League. You've got to be at the very, very top for this to work. And at the moment, it is actually, touch wood, working for us. We know we're not top of the league. We're not even in the playoffs at the moment. And like I said, we're not actually in the fifth round of the FA Cup yet. But for us, who are not used to this, it is a joy to watch. And I'm someone who, my favourite style of football is when, like I was saying earlier, where the defence is solid, the midfield protect the defence, and then you go and maybe hit them on the break because you've got a good front three, right? That's my favourite type of football. But I'm actually fast being having my arm twisted to having seen us the last few weeks, because I'm really, really enjoying watching us at the moment.
One of the other things I really like about this team is that players you wouldn't traditionally associate with working hard off the ball, high pressing, doing the dirty work. Mowbray's actually got them doing it too. I mean, the big one for me the last few weeks has been Edouard Michou. Borough game, he was running around like a madman, winning tackles and winning second balls, and I've never seen him do that since he came in. And then again against Fulham, Jack Clark for the goal. It's a really good bit of play from him, but it's determination, it's hard work, it's pressing. And that's the reason we score that goal, because he pressed the player who looked like they were a little bit too comfortable on the ball. And that's the other side of it as well. Mowbray's got the players doing that. You expect that from Dan Ballard and maybe Corey Evans, Alex Pritchard, those type of players, but you don't necessarily expect it from even to be honest, until recently, Dan Neil, Edouard Michou, like say Jack Clark, Patrick Roberts, total flair player, but he's off the ball works fantastic. And that can't be a coincidence.
No, and just don't, in all of this, and I know we won't, but don't forget the defenders as well. I mean, Danny Bath, he's been very, very solid. And Dan Ballard looks like he reads the game so well. He always just seems to be in the right place.
Yeah, as he was in there at Fulham on the line.
Right, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that was quite incredible. We actually got a little bit of luck there because of obviously the deflection went into Patterson, but he was there. He just always knows where to be. He looks quite effortless.
Yeah.
And they're the best type of centre-backs. He reads the game so well, and that's natural. That hasn't come from coaching. I mean, Tony Mowbray was a very good centre-back, but Ballard's obviously just got that naturally, and he's brilliant. And if you look at Trey Hume at full-back, he's had a lot of praise recently, playing very, very well. Before that, Gooch was getting praise at right-back, and at left-back, we didn't think we could possibly do without Dennis Serkin. Now, Adji Elise came in and didn't give up his place. So it really is every single department, and Anthony Patterson, he was getting the most from the commentators yesterday on 5 Live. He got the most praise out of anyone, by the way.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Diallo or anything like that. It was Patterson that got all the praise.
Mm-hmm.
So every single player is doing their jobs and doing it very well.
Yeah, and Patterson's one who I think, and Jack Clark actually. Patterson and Jack Clark are the two in recent weeks who, while we've played really well, I think they've maybe went through a difficult little period. Not saying they played particularly badly or anything, but if you were to sort of highlight anybody as who was having a rough patch, it might have been those two. They really needed that performance because I mean Clark's goal, he's got that in his locker. We've seen him do it. I think that's his 5th goal this season. He is a good finisher when he gets the chances, and that's the key now building forward for him, for Mowbray, is to say to Jack, look, you've got the most assists of anyone in the team this season. You can score goals. Let's see it more consistently, because he'll go 3 or 4 games without doing that. And I think if he builds up that consistency, he could be a real top player. And then you're on about Anthony Patterson there. So, I mean, as a shot stopper, he's unbelievable. And Mowbray's praise of him after the game, actually, I really enjoyed reading that, where he talked about how, Patterson's mentality is unlike most goalkeepers he's ever met, because he's just so calm and nothing phases him ever. So, normally goalkeepers are quite erratic and hot-headed, and he says nothing phases this kid. Nothing, you can ask him to do anything and it doesn't faze him whatsoever. Again, all adds to the wider project with this team and all feeds into this, really positive mentality that we seem to have in this group.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Patterson has been really, this time last year, I thought that he would be our 3rd choice goalkeeper, and Alex Neil put him in and again took his chance, and he's never looked like giving it up, that number 1 spot. I think he's been fantastic, and I can understand the comparisons to Pickford in the fact that he's come through as a local lad, come through the academy, and he looks a real talent. But Pickford was built up. We knew that Pickford was going to be that. Everyone had heard of how good Pickford was. Patterson didn't get that kind of praise, but that's because we were in League One, not the Premier League at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's just getting better and better all the time. As for Jack Clark, I actually don't think his form dipped that much. I think it's just that our expectations of him are very high. I think it also doesn't help that he plays left wing, but sometimes will be forced to change the formation. He plays left wing back, which is very different. And for a spell, he was playing as a striker. I don't think that's helped him.
Even yesterday, he had to move sort of more centrally. It was tough for him.
Yeah, and there you go. And I actually think that he hasn't played badly at all. I think it's just that his standards are so high, which is no bad thing.
Yeah, that probably segues us a little bit into the Ross. I didn't really want to talk about this, but Ross Stewart. So he's likely to be out for the season. It looks, pretty bad injury, Achilles tendon tear. I mean, I know Tony Mowbray had said that after a scan we'll know more, but Achilles tears are usually, they're right up there with ACL injuries, really. They can be pretty lengthy spells out on the side. What was your initial feelings, thoughts when you realised that Ross Stewart was probably going to be out for a while?
Praying that he won't be out for a while, but it does look like he will be by the time this podcast goes out. We'll probably know, to be honest, or be very, very close to knowing. I think at this stage we can assume he won't play again this season. Let's hope he is still back for the start of next season, of course, and hopefully it's in the Sunlun shirt, by the way. But with him out for the season, I think immediately have to start thinking, right, well, how do we replace him?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is the thing. We have been short of a striker. We all felt we were. And if you listen to what Christian Speakman said, and he's getting a heck of a lot of praise and completely deserves it, him and I think Dave Jones has been very much part of this as well. Their recruitment has been superb ever since they came in, really. The one criticism that they've had this season is that we were short up front, which was proven when both Stewart and Sims got injured. Now, Christian Speakman has always said, well, hold on, Diallo can play there, and they see Diaku as a striker. So if you take those 4 that I've just mentioned there, Stewart, Sims, Diaku, Diallo. Now, Diallo, we know, is too dangerous on either the wing or number 10. You can't put him up front because that's a waste. Okay,
Yeah.
So take that out. That still leaves 3. We only play with 1 striker and two or 3 off the striker, okay? That means you only need 3 strikers. Fair enough. I know as fans we weren't convinced Diaku was a striker. Doesn't matter. He's gone now, okay? That would leave Stewart and Sims. Sims has gone, and now Ross Stewart's injured. Now, Diaku's been replaced by Gelhardt, so we've got 1 there. They are waiting on Ellis Sims coming back, hoping that he'll come back. That would leave 2. Now, 2 wasn't enough at the start of the season, so I still think that we need another. Now, this Lihadji Lihadji. I don't know whether they see him, like Diaku, as someone who can play up front as well as on the wing. And I can't say I know much about him at all. Maybe they see him as a striker, but that would be dangerous if his natural position is as a winger. So I still think so we've got Gelhardt. I still think, even if Sims comes back, I still think we need to be looking at one more. Now, as we're waiting for Sims to make his decision, I don't know who, but there will be a striker that we're just waiting to pull the trigger on and sign in case Sims doesn't come. Once we find out about Ross Stewart, which is probably going to be the day before deadline day, maybe even on deadline day, if he is out for the season, I think they need to pull the trigger on whoever is the backup for Ellis Sims not coming back, and then still hope that Ellis Sims comes back. That would leave us Gelhardt, Sims, and one other. Mm-hmm. And by the way, in my opinion, that would be fine.
Yeah.
But I do think at the moment, there'll be no panic in the recruitment team because they've planned for everything. All right. And it was real bad luck that both Stewart and Sims got injured at the same time. And yes, I know under Alex Neil, they were playing together, which meant that we were definitely short in that regard. And I know all of that. I understand all of that. I agree with all of that. But right now, I think if we have Gelhardt, Sims, and one other, we are absolutely fine. And if Sims doesn't come back, I actually think we need Gelhardt and two others.
I wonder with this, the way that we are trying to operate now, especially with recruitment and stuff, I would like to think that part of their sort of scouting and forming their discussions has been, eventually at some point we could be in a situation where we have to replace Ross Stewart. And this might just push that process forward a little bit. They've probably got their eye on players they think could replace him. So I know what you're saying about Sims in particular as somebody we might bring back. And if that didn't come off, then we would have other options. But I do wonder whether they've also been looking at Ross Stewart replacements anyways, because they were probably gearing for, well, maybe not gearing's the word, but they have to expect that we were going to maybe receive some interest in him this window. And if we made an offer we couldn't refuse, we would have to replace him. So does it push that process forward? Do we then look at it and we go, right, Ross Stewart's out for the season. We need to basically act as though he's not here. We need an actual replacement through the door. Or do they just think short term and go, we'll just bring in a loan and we'll see where we're at in the summer?
Well, we've got enough space for loans because you're only allowed 5 in your match day squad. We've got Diallo, Michu, Gelhardt. Even if Sims comes back, that's 4. Am I missing one loanee? I think that's it, isn't it? So
I think so, yeah.
There would be room for one more. You can have loads in your squad, but match day squad, you can only have 5. So there'd be room for a loan. As to whether it would be Stewart's replacement, I would imagine that to replace Stewart with whoever they were planning to replace Stewart with, I think that would be dependent on how much money we got for Stewart.
Yeah.
And we haven't sold him. He's injured. So there's no money in there. So I think what we'll be doing is we'll keep going for Sims. That'll be up to Sean Dyche. And he might not even know yet. And the Stewart replacement till the end of the season will be whoever was going to be Sims's replacement. That's what I would imagine to happen, as opposed to bringing in someone who might cost a decent transfer fee.
It's very tough to replace Ross Stewart, though, isn't it, properly? Because I can't think of many strikers out there who do everything he does. So it might be a case of that, we just have to accept we're going to have to change the way we play a little bit. Because he's very unique. I can't ever remember a Sunderland striker like Ross Stewart. Somebody who is 6'4", strong, quick, scores goals, works harder than anybody else on the pitch. Those players don't grow on trees. But there are good strikers out there. And maybe it's a case of you look at it and you go, we just have to change the way we play. And it's maybe just a little tweak, but you get on with it, don't you?
When I was saying about how people from outside of Sunlun are now starting to notice how good we are and how good our players are, one thing that people notice straight away, I didn't realise how quick Ross Stewart was. Ross Stewart is lightning, but just because he's like 6'4" and he doesn't look like he'd be quick, let's be honest.
No.
Right? And he is lightning. That's what surprises everybody. And I can't think of a like-for-like replacement for him. Sims and him were relatively similar, not exactly the same. Gelhardt, very, very different. I've noticed. I've actually seen it. Thing is, when we sign a player now, I'm sure you're the same. Sometimes I've barely heard of them. And I don't really know or I might have heard of them, but I don't even know what type of player they are. Like with Ekwa, I didn't know what type I knew he was a midfielder, didn't know what type of midfielder. Exactly the same with Abdullah Bar. Didn't know what type of midfielder they were. Michu, I thought, was an attacking midfielder like Pritchard or Embleton, but he's playing when Corey Evans doesn't play.
Yeah.
You see, with Gelhardt, I actually know all about him. I've seen lots of Gelhardt, and a comparison that I keep hearing is that he's similar to Wayne Rooney in his style of play.
That. Yeah.
Now, he's not going to be England's record goal scorer, right? Very unlikely to be. But if you look at his technique, the way he runs, his style of play, there are actually similarities there, and they're both Scousers as well, aren't they? But that's by the by. As a player, there actually are similarities with Rooney, and Rooney was a brilliant striker, but he would constantly be dropping off, And Gelhardt, rather than dropping off in the kind of midfield as Rooney used to do, Gelhardt drifts wide.
Yeah.
So he's not so you're right, he won't be a Stewart replacement, but he is very, very exciting. And he'll go straight into the side. He'll start against Millwall, no doubt at all, right? And he might never, ever give up his place. This is the issue that everybody knows, is if he gets injured, who is there to replace him? And that's what we need to do between now and Tuesday night, is replace Sims, hopefully with Sims. But if not, he needs to be replaced. And I do think we are going to have to replace Stewart now.
Are you confident we'll do it? Because I am. I've got a lot of confidence in this team, of recruitment team, that is.
Yes, I think we will, especially now that Diaku is gone. And that Diaku, we now know that he was in the squad not as a winger but as a striker, someone who could play both. I now think that he will be replaced. I don't think we'll be spending a lot of money on Stewart's replacement because it is only short term, and Sims would only be a loan anyway. Well, unless we can convince Everton to sell him, even better. I do think that we will bring in 2 strikers, and I'm very, very hopeful, fairly confident that Sims will be one of them as well, because Deitch hasn't taken that Everton job to rely on Ellis Sims.
No.
We know how good he is, but Everton don't, and I think that he's taken that job and been given the green light to sign a striker.
You just touched on something there, and I was going to ask about it, but yeah, Sims as a permanent option, I think that would make a lot of sense now. It maybe didn't before yesterday's game, but right now I think it does make a lot of sense. To be honest, for him as well, you look at how this sort of month's played out for Sims at Everton. He's barely played. He's been embroiled in all that carry on outside the ground when he's been leaving games, and people have been sort of giving him a bit of stick, and he's probably wondering what the hell they're going on about because he's not even been there. If you're him, you must be thinking, God, I had it so good at Sunderland. I was playing, I was scoring goals. It was a nice, happy environment. The fans were all happy. I had a nice coach there who treated us well and gave us plenty of encouragement. It might actually be the making of Ellis Sims, that he's gone away for a month or so, seen what the grass is like on the other side. It's not as green as it is in Sunland. And, maybe he might think, I need a fresh start. I need to move away from Everton. I just need to establish myself somewhere now.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Sims rejected us. I think the issue would be how much would he cost. And we are very good at getting the right deals for the club at the moment and adding sell-ons and such like. But Everton know how much we rate him. So, I don't know if he actually came through the Everton Academy, but he's been there a long, long time. And they know that if we want him that much, we'll have to pay. And that might be the stumbling block on a permanent deal. Because if you think, when we had Barini on loan, no one really rated him apart from us. So Liverpool were able to say, right, if you want him, he's going to cost 14 million. Mm-hmm. Well, to everyone else, he was worth significantly less than that. Same when we wanted, when we had Johnny Evans. Roy Keane tried so hard to sign Johnny Evans, but Manchester United were like, funny enough, again, £14 million. If you want to sign him £14 million, whereas no one else saw him as £14 million. At the moment, we're the only ones who really, really rate Ellis Sims. So I think getting a permanent transfer fee agreed would be more difficult. Getting Everton to let him go on loan, as long as they sign a striker, I think would be actually quite straightforward. But getting a fee agreed, I think, would be significantly harder.
Yeah, speaking of Everton, we've apparently, by the time this pod goes out, we might have signed him. But we've apparently had a bid accepted for Joseph Anderson, who's another player that you've just said there, never heard of him. 21-year-old. He's only ever played for the 21s. I think he's their captain. I think he's the under-21s captain at Everton. Another player I've not really heard of, but it does make you wonder what's going on in terms of outgoings as well, because Bailey Wright's been linked with a move away. What do you make of all of that? Sort of, bringing in a young player and maybe letting one with experience go.
Yeah, so there's two things that could happen with that one. If he comes in, we might be saying, right, come in, settle for 6 months, and then you will replace Bailey Wright in the summer, because Bailey Wright's contract is up. He doesn't play that much. I really, really like him. He was so important in getting us up last season, but he knows this season he is a backup. I mean, Luke O'Nien was playing central defence when he was in the squad as central midfielder at the start of the season, ahead of him. So that could happen, or it might be a case of, right, come now and we'll let Bailey Wright go. But ultimately, if this guy does sign, which, like I said, at the time of recording this, he hasn't yet, if he does, he will be a Bailey Wright replacement. It just depends whether it's now or whether it's in the summer.
Do you think we need a centre-half? Is it a desperate position to fill?
Well, interestingly, the only position that I think that we need to be really active in is striker. Because I'll very quickly go through it. In goal, Patterson and Bass, right? Patterson has proved that he's number one. If we sign another goalkeeper, if we were being greedy, we'd sign another goalkeeper who could potentially push Patterson a little bit harder than Bass has. All right. But at the moment, I don't see any reason to do that. There's Patterson and Bass. So goalkeeper, absolutely fine. Young Jacob Carney as well. We've not seen very much of him at all. But there is still 3 goalkeepers. Because I don't think Carney's gone out on loan, has he?
No, he's still there, yeah.
So I wouldn't waste wages there, all right? Right back, you've got Hume, who's been brilliant. Gooch has played very well at right back. And there's also Niall Huggins is fit. Huggins, I actually thought might go out on loan, but it's Huggins. Left back, Sirkin and Elise have been brilliant. And again, Huggins is both-footed. He can play both sides, okay? So we're covered there. Centre back, which is what you asked me about, Danny Bath, Dan Ballard, can't praise those two enough. Luke O'Nien, who I thought was a central midfielder at the start of the season, has come back into centre back and has been excellent. So there's 3, and then you've got Bailey Wright. I'm not missing one, am I? Elise can play there, of course.
It's weird, isn't it? Because we've got players who can play a number of roles. But yeah, Elise maybe I don't think we've really seen him in a 2 very often. But when we're playing a back 3, he slots in.
So if Anderson comes in and Wright goes, that's fine. So basically, don't let Wright go unless someone's coming in, and that would be the case here. And I would believe us to be well stocked at centre back. At the start of the season, I thought we had far too many central midfielders. But O'Nien, like I said, moved into centre back, so we lost one there from that position. Matete's gone out on loan. I love Matete, actually.
I'm with you there. I think we've had this conversation on a podcast before.
Yes, I think we have.
we both love him. I'm gutted he's gone out on loan, but I do sort of understand it.
Yeah, well, I just hope he comes back in the summer and we don't sell him. But we'll see what happens. Elsewhere in central midfield, Michu and Barr, who are starting to play a little bit more. Pritchard's been injured. Embleton, we don't know if we'll see him again this season. I don't know if they've put a timescale on him coming back. So actually, in midfield, we looked a little bit light. Now Evans is injured, but we have brought in Ekwa. And remember that O'Nien can go back into central midfield if needed. So central midfield, we might still need a cover for Evans, but is Ekwa that cover? So maybe central midfield, but I'm not that worried about it. On the wing, we've got Diallo, wing stroke number 10, there's Diallo, Clark, Roberts, Bennett, and now Lihadji. So we're fine on the wings. It's just up front. So when you say, do we need a centre-back? If Bailey Wright goes, yes, but that would be Anderson. I'm actually really relaxed about anything at every other position. I think we're actually okay. We could be greedy and say, yes, okay, we need another central midfielder. Yes, maybe another goalkeeper. But that's if we're being greedy. I don't think we need to be greedy. And I've probably even missed out a couple of players there as well who've not thought about it. If we decided we needed a winger, or here's one, if they decide that Lihadji is a striker, not a winger, we could actually recall Jack Diamond, who is playing out of his skin this season. So there's another option that actually is still a Sunlun player. So it's only really a striker I think we need, and I think we need 2.
It sort of depends on how seriously we are actually taking a promotion push, doesn't it? Because at this stage you could go, well, it ain't going to take a great amount to sort of move from where we are currently to being, a team who even finishes maybe 4th or 5th. But that would require maybe a little bit of money just to bring in players that we wouldn't ordinarily target. To be honest, I think actually, because everything's been so good in terms of results and performances and the style of football and stuff, it's probably masked over what has been a really big problem, which has been our injuries. We've had injuries all season to key players, and we've just got on with it. We found ways around it. Even in the game against Fulham, we brought on, I think, with Stewart going off, we had no striker on the bench apart from, I think maybe one of the teenagers on the bench was a forward. But we just got on with it. We moved Ahmad and Clark more centrally. Barr came on and played sort of to the left of the midfield. And we got on with it, and we still look good. And maybe that hasn't always, it probably hasn't helped Tony Mowbray's case when he's asking for more players, because the lads we've got are just they're doing a job regardless of what we throw his way and at the players' way. So I wonder if there's going to be an honest conversation sort of today, tomorrow, about how much do we really want to get promoted, and that probably feeds into mainly with the strikers, to be honest. Do we just bring in lads on loan to cover for Stewart's absence, and one of them would probably be Sims? Or do we push the boat out a little bit? Do we spend a little bit of money on a player, maybe from abroad, we might have just been looking at for the summer, or maybe one down the road, or we maybe aren't too sure about? Is this now the time to gamble? Because to be honest, they haven't really gambled when it comes to transfers. They've just they've been very, like you've just said, very calm, very cool and collected. The deals we've made have been, to be honest, in large part bargains. We've signed a lot of really good players for the way the deals have been structured. It's unlike anything we've done recently, and I do wonder, are they maybe a little bit tempted to just push the boat out on one or two players?
Yeah, they could be. I mean, Mowbray has always said that he was under no pressure to kind of make the playoffs or get promoted this season. And I don't think that has ever kind of been like last season when Alex Neil came in, it was get us promoted, and he did it, right? This season, the pressure wasn't there. But I get what you're saying. At the end of January, we're just outside the playoffs. A good run would see us go into them. A bad run would see us drop right back down. I mean, going into that Middlesbrough game, I think we were 12th.
Yeah.
We won the game and we're 1 point off the playoffs. That's how tight it is.
It's so tight,
So
yeah.
I see what you mean, but if I can't see them saying, I don't think that this is the time where I don't think that they will think, that this is the time that we really need that push. I think if we were third, a couple of points off the top two, and we need a push to get into the automatics or to cement ourselves in the playoffs, that might be the time that we do that. I think right now, they're probably quite comfortable thinking, well, we're doing well, a good run, and we might make the playoffs anyway. There's still a couple of days in the transfer window where we're trying to do things anyway. I can't see that happening now.
What's your gut feeling then in terms of how deadline day is going to play out, how things are going to go? What's your gut feeling telling you?
Gut feeling, and it is only a gut feeling, is that Sims will be back. And that's just purely because I think Deitch will have been promised a striker going in at Everton.
It's interesting, we've left the number 9 shirt available, isn't it?
Good.
Yeah.
And I actually do think that there will be another, but I think it will be a loan. And the issue with a loan is clubs want their loanees to actually play. And I'm saying that, well, if Sims and Gelhardt are on loan, they're both going to be wanting to play. If we get a third striker on loan, I think it's going to have to be someone who accepts that they're coming in as a backup, which is going to be quite hard. That's a difficulty. But there may be a player out there, kind of like a Lihadji or like a Bar, who can't break into their first team and are available for a cheap price with a sell on. I think that could be potentially as well. I don't think we'll be going to spend a lot of money on a striker because that's not the way we do things, full stop. So my gut feeling is there will be a lone striker, hopefully Sims, and another striker, but it will be somebody who is not going to be that much money, but may well give the selling club some money down the line. That's my gut feeling.
Yeah, and me too. Obviously, I think this, if we do sign this lad from Everton, the centre half, in terms of outgoings, probably only Bailey Wright, isn't it? I think now, or is it?
I would say so.
Maybe an outsider. I don't know how you look at. Obviously, if we've strengthened out wide, maybe Bennett could go out somewhere. I don't know. There are a couple of ones where I'm humming and hawing. I could see benefit in maybe letting them go and play a game somewhere else, but then the club might be looking at it and thinking, no, we need to keep them around. We need to just let them get used to being in this environment, really, and maybe reassess in the summer.
I could see Huggins going out on loan if he's fit enough to do so. It might be best that he stays with our medical team and has a bit part between now and the end of the season. So I could see that happening with Huggins. With Bennett, I think at the moment, when I listed the wingers there, given that if we don't bring in a forward, if Lihadji or Diallo or Roberts, if they have to play up front, or Clark, if they have to play up front, then we're going to need Bennett. So I'd be surprised if he goes. But if he goes without being replaced, it's different when you've got Embleton there, because he can play in so many different positions. He can play normal central midfielder, he can play number 10, he can play right wing, he can play left wing, but he's injured. So I would be surprised if Bennett went unless he was replaced.
Well, let's hope it's a nice day for some. We don't have any surprises, anybody throwing us off and taking our best players. I can't see that happening, to be honest.
Well, we're not going to lose Stewart now. That's one thing to think about. We're not going to lose Stewart this month. Don't know about the summer. We'll have to wait and see, and hopefully he'll sign a new contract. And we'd all be delighted if he did, and hopefully also we can get Chris Rigg tied. I don't want to use the word tied down because that suggests he doesn't want to be here. But
I saw him patting the badge. He's a mackerel.
Yeah, well, yeah, I wouldn't read too much into patting or kissing the badge. But also, when I went through the list of central midfielders there, saying that we might need one more, actually, I didn't mention Chris Rigg there, and he has actually been on the bench. He has featured. He's come on in the 2 FA Cup games so far. So that's another player there who can come in, and sometimes giving a player a chance like that because of injuries or suspension can be the making of their career. I'm not saying that for him because he's only 15 years old, but that is actually another player.
Yeah, and he was fantastic again when he came on. Done himself proud, I would say. Ran around, worked really hard, won us the ball back. Obviously, we haven't even mentioned it really, but scoring that goal, I'm gutted. I'm just so gutted. I actually fell to the floor. that's how much I just couldn't believe what I was watching. A guy scored, and then obviously. Offside flag went up.
I think everybody. I think you know what. I think there were probably even some Fulham fans who felt sorry for him.
Yeah.
Because that was some moment. There was
the headlines were written, weren't they?
Yeah. There's probably only Newcastle fans who weren't happy about it. Who probably were happy about it, to be honest with you, because it would have been some moment. It would have been back page. It actually would have been back page.
Yeah. Well, it still was big news though. They made a big deal out of it on Match of the Day, and it was on all the news coverage. Around the FA Cup on Saturday, so a big deal was made of it because it is still a big story, and just him playing. Even I think they said he would have been the youngest ever FA Cup goal scorer. So
what a shame!
I know,
what a shame.
Never mind. But yeah, let's hope that deadline day is a good one for Sunlun. When people catch you on deadline day, Tom, where are you going to be?
Deadline day, good morning transfers, 9 till 10. That's the only hour that I'm on air deadline day. I will be working non-stop all the way until the deadline, but on air 9 till 10. Good morning transfers. And then after the deadline day, back to my good morning sports fans, 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. and Sundays, Soccer Sundays, midday till 3, which is as soon as I get off this chat with you, I'm going straight to go and see the guests and get ready to go on air.
Well, good luck. Let's hope it's a good deadline day for you, good deadline day for Sunderland. And just for joining us, mate. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, anytime.
Thank you very much. Thanks to listeners. You can catch, as always, rokerreport.sbnation.com, all of our written content over on the website. And we might go live on deadline day on Twitter, so keep an eye out for that. And thank you very much for joining us. We'll catch you later.